I'm just going to pull it back to Berserkers because I've got so many questions I want to ask about this.
Okay, yeah.
So before we get too far off topic, I have a lot that I want to ask.
Yeah.
So, firstly, what is the possibility that they are just a group of mercenaries that are kind of for hire and wander around as a well-trained unit that kind of are out for themselves, wanting gold, I guess, and go to the highest bidder, and it's kind of gone down in legend as being more.
Man, there's so much to this, but let me. So many people know. I think I don't have to talk about this a lot, but let's start at the word berserker. Can either mean bare shirt, a cirque is shirt, or being naked, bare chested, maybe. There's I sadly cannot quote this, but there's still a Frisian word that looks a lot like berserker, and it just slipped my mind. I'm sorry, but were they mercenaries? No, I would say no, but they are definitely a war band that moves separately, or let's put it like this, that moves in the fringes of society. At least that is what the writing tells us, that they are a bit like a modern day biker gang. So you would maybe stay away from them as a normal person, as a non-soldier maybe.
So I would like to interject that this is very much like the saga literature, and especially the later saga literature that I was just looking up. I think it's Gunnlaug, a Serpent Tongue saga, that sort of like uses berserkers as just like it's sort of like, oh, that's an evil, sort of dishonorable warrior who uses magic, to trick people.
Would they belong to a particular village or town, but kind of live on the outskirts? Is that the idea that it would? One king would have a group of these people kind of at hand in case.
But I wouldn't say they live separately. No, but this also comes from the sagas. But it is said that berserkers might roam the country or the lands individually, and then move from town to town to challenge people in what is called the holmganger, or just generally into a fight, and may join a battle here and there. But this goes a bit more into the writing, and not so much archaeology, obviously. But the later literature definitely makes you think that they moved separately, or along with the Ulfhednar, I should say, but separately from the army. So there's one saga. I'm sorry, I mix up a lot because they appear in some 30-ish sagas, I think, that they moved in front of the army. So they were the first to go into battle because they could not be hurt by iron nor fire, Snorri writes. Other sagas, I think, mention that they just fight individually in all the rage, and they also kill friendly soldiers, but they really move on their own, and they may.
I mean, so in many of the sagas, they're even more like that typical Wild West villain who terrorizes the local community, and then the sheriff has to come and kill him in a gun duel.
Exactly. It kind of sounds like that friend that you have that is a little bit wild, but you're glad that he's your friend, and he's not going against you, kind of thing.
The guy that doesn't know his strength. But what I really like is how archaeology is almost on the other spectrum of this image that the writings led to believe. Because if, let's say that indeed and this is not my personal opinion, but let's say that the images from the Vendel era depict berserkers. I will come back to that later, but they show a very structured way of how these people are trained, at least when you follow the images. So the images show a young boy who's taken out of society at a young age, say 7-ish, like in Sparta, or I think Beowulf also says around that age. And then he's being trained until, say, what we now call puberty, on how to fight and how to deal with women, how to hunt, and all that kind of stuff. That is very much part of becoming a man. It's like an initiation ritual, which is in itself very structured, obviously, because you're trained by the surviving elite warriors, the elder of the tribe. So this is all very structured. And then at one point, and this is what these images show, you become this warrior with the horned helmet and the spear, and you have your whole ritual dancing and stuff like that going on. And then you have the writings who show the opposite of that, berserkers going all wild and not taking into account anything that I just described. It's just, really fighting on their own. So this is a very contrasting image. But I have to say, what I said when I started this little ramble is that this is when you think of the images depicting a berserker, which we are not sure about. It is very well possible, and I actually tend to be in this camp, that they do not show berserker, but this is what we later assumed were berserker, which is.
But that's a sort of like a nomenclature issue. Would those people who made those images have called that a berserker or ufhedna?
Exactly.
I mean, we have no idea what they would have called them, of course, because they left very little written material, mostly, short inscriptions in runes. But if we look at it as sort of like from the phenomenological perspective, right? So this as a phenomenon that has different types of expressions in different human cultures, it seems to be very, very standard, right? That these early cultures, whether we're in Europe or in Asia, Africa, Australia, North or South America, you train warriors in this way. Like in these types of warrior societies, right?
Exactly.
So it seems very likely. I want to also throw in what Jens Peter Schut, the Danish historian of religion, has written about this in terms of initiation rituals. He basically tells us that, the Völsunga saga and the story about Sigurd and the Dragon Slayer and all that stuff, that's one long story about initiation into warriorhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have the situation where you're isolated from society as a young man, boy, and then this is where you're living as wolves, by the way. And then there's a reintegration into society. That's the typical sort of structure for initiation rituals.
Yeah, and this is very. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is very much what the images of Torslunda from the 7th century Sweden describe. Also, images on the Vendel one helmet, which is my favorite grave that I'm reconstructing in the living history stuff. But they show a lot of images of young people, or what I assume are young people, in their initiation phase, fighting the two bears or wolves. This is a famous image that is also seen on the purse that is found in Sutton Hoo, that you probably talked about, and also the image that is from the Netherlands that I talked about earlier shows a little man in between two beasts or wolves. This changes from location to location, but it's very much a phase of initiation. We also see this being described by the Maasai people in Africa. I do not want to say a one-on-one link is found here, but it looks like these initiation rituals have an undertone, so to speak, all over the world, which is also, by the way, written by Chris Kershaw, who wrote extensively about this, that the Indo-European cultures had a similar way of initiation, and this eventually spread out to what is now Western Europe and Scandinavia. But the idea of young boys being taken out of the tribe from their mothers and being trained to be full-fledged warriors is a very universal thing that we still find in archaeology from the time that we are talking about now.
It makes sense that if you're a warrior culture, then it's about being a warrior, being able to fight, and why not start that at a young age? It's not like they have to go to school necessarily and wait until they reach 16, 17 and they leave and they've got more free time. They can do it from as soon as they can hold a sword or hold a weapon, and as soon as you can start to teach them. So it makes sense that they would start, because they're not held by the same kind of rules that we are today.
Right, they would need to do it because
I guess if somebody attacked the village and you had a bunch of 10-year-old kids, they could at least poke someone with the sharp end of a sword if they needed to.
Exactly.
But it doesn't matter who's holding the sword, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
No. But what I like to say when I talk to people about this that are not as familiar as you are with it, but just the idea of go back into your mind when you were, say, 12 or something, and then think about what you were doing at that time, and then think about what these people were doing at the time. They were fighting lions at the age of 12, or maybe puberty at most, I mean, a lion is a really big fucking animal. And,
that's a good point.
Maasai people, even to this day, still have a ritual where you have to fight a creature like that. I'm you cannot quote me on this. I don't know if they still kill lions like this, but we know from accounts from not too long ago that these people were still fighting lions. And the images from the pre-Christian times show us that they were fighting bears. And this is also what is written down in the sagas later. So just imagine sending your kid that is now probably a YouTuber to far off fucking forest fighting bears.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm glad I grew up now.
Right?